Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the bi-weekly YCPTA webinar. My name is Heather Lawrence, and I'm a business analyst with Illinois WorkNet. Joining us on the webinar is Olivia Miller, who is a training and development specialist with Illinois WorkNet, Tara Scott, grant manager for YCP with the Office of Employment and Training, and Shannon Hampton, who is the grant manager for YCP with the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. Before we start, I'd like to cover some housekeeping items. When you join the webinar muted. Please remain muted until the presentation has ended. At that time, you may unmute yourself and ask questions. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type those into the chat. This webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be posted to the YCP Partner Guide by the end of this week. I will now turn things over to Tara to get us kicked off.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. I wanted to do a couple of reminders this morning. I did send out the monthly expenditure report. So if you did not get a copy of yours or your organization didn't, please email me. On my list, everyone is checked off. When we send those out, please look at it, send it to your finance folks so you can double check that GRS is up to date. And also do your updates in Illinois WorkNet so that everything is perfect. Also, I want to remind folks we are starting to have monitoring visits. Just make sure that you are using, we have any case file. If you have any case files, we have all of those resources on Illinois WorkNet under the full list of resources. We have case file templates that you can use for your clients. Olivia's clicking on that right now. So I just want to make sure everyone knows where their stuff is. During those monitoring visits, we don't want it to be as a surprise for you or for your team. So we want to make sure that you are prepared. So we have actually made a list right there where your file review. There's different templates on there as far as if you're working with in-school or out-of-school youth. So just look on there. Those are the documentation that you're supposed to have in the files. This should not be a surprise to anyone, but I just wanted to remind everyone that that is available online as well. Also, our folks that had the 90-day, Olivia, can you go to our 90-day 90-day document that we just made? Sorry, it was on the resource. There it goes. 90 days, no service. I want to make another announcement about that. If you have youth that you are trying to figure out what service to put them in, you can look on this list. We did send this to our monitoring team, not our monitoring team, sorry, our performance team. And they were able to list out different categories where you can still work with your youth. I'm thinking of Peoria, with your in-school youth or anybody that's really working with in-school youth, and you are having them sitting, kind of waiting until graduation. This is other services that you can provide to them. Read the descriptions and apply which one, you're doing with your staff that you can do until they're graduating, because you do want to get quote unquote credit for them getting their high school diploma and all that good stuff. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone knows our resource list is available on Illinois WorkNet, and it is their quick question. We got our monitoring visit and really never heard back from them. I haven't heard anything back, and you haven't heard anything back. So I can reach out to Tamika. Eric, can you send me an email as well? And I will add Tamika to it, and we'll see what's going on. Perfect. Anybody else, if you've had that same issue where you've had your monitoring done, you haven't heard anything back, please send me an email, add myself and Shannon. I will add Tamika, who's over our monitoring team, and we can just check in and see what's going on. The next thing I wanted to remind everyone about is your spend down. Please look at your budgets again. I feel like I, at this point, am the budget lady, but we got to make sure those budgets are good. These grants, most of them are going until April 30th. So please make sure your spend down plan is realistic. If you feel like you are not going to spend 100% of your funds, please email myself and Shannon today. We really need to know that information, excuse me, so that we can, that's Olivia, so that we can talk to your team and figure out what's going on. I will caution people, if we see that you have supportive services that are not spent and everything else in your grant is, we will push back and have you provide your students with more services. We are huge advocates of students having literally everything they need to be successful. So supportive service line is one that I really push back and will have you go back, talk to your clients, make sure they need absolutely nothing, because it is a line item that I love, and I feel like it is very flexible, especially under this grant. There's a lot of things that we can provide for our students underneath that umbrella. Does anyone have any questions about GRS? Does anyone have any questions about monitoring? And does anyone have any questions about your monthly reports that I sent out yesterday? If so, unmute yourself, let me know. Also, the resource page, again, is there, so please use it. Everything that we've talked about or gone over is available online. Like I said, there's several documents that you can use as well. Does anybody have any other questions?
Sarah, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. I saw you had your hand raised.
Yes, Tara, I just wanted to follow up about the email you sent about our report from yesterday and the 90-day exit rule. I had no problem with that exit. My only issue was the case note. So I just wanted to let you know, I understand we got that in, and we've got our 3 who are kind of sitting there waiting to graduate, but they've all been officially exited now. So I hope everything looks good on that. Yeah, we just had that weird glitch with me trying to case note it.
Gotcha. And I added Olivia just to check it out. So I'm sure once she gets a moment, she'll respond back.
Yeah, no problem. But we should be good
Anybody?
to go here. And we're also going through monitoring this week. We had our entrance conference yesterday, and they're doing a virtual monitoring. So they're looking through our Illinois WorkNet and everything this week. And then we have an exit conference on Thursday. So hopefully all goes well there. But yeah, that's what's going on with us.
Yes. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody have any questions? Quad, I saw that you all just hopped on. Just a reminder, spending plans, please get back with your team and really talk about that. If you have any questions, or if you all will not spend 100% of your funds, Shannon and I really need that information today so that we can go ahead and create plans. So I just wanted to make sure. Anyone else have any questions about that? All righty. Send us any emails. Like I said, if you need additional guidance on anything, but we are at the tail end of these grants. So I hope that everything is smooth and we are just coasting by. All right, Olivia, thank you.
Thank you very much, Tara. So today I want to be showing you all a new feature that we have coming out. Not everybody is going to need to use this feature, but we've had some folks ask about how to track certain things. So we want to make that available to you. I'm going to demo it for you. Currently, it's just on our test environment. We're working out the last few little bugs with it before we roll it to production for you all to be able to have access to. Once we have it on production, we typically do releases Tuesdays and Thursday nights. So we're hoping to be able to push this one out on our Thursday night release. We will update this Partner Tools updates page, and you will see a new listing that would show here, highlighting the follow-up enhancements that we're going to be releasing. Additionally, once we have the follow-up enhancements available, we will have updated instructions on how to use the follow-up section linked within the instruction guide. So several of you have customers who've exited and you're in the follow-up process, which you're tracking follow-up, you have a follow-up service, and then you are also case noting. Let me jump into a customer, I have some test customers. So you have an outcomes page. You have a way that you can track your follow-up case notes. Give this a second to load. I might have to log back in. And we all also have there's a follow-up service, which I've seen several of you have already used it and are familiar with it. Follow-up is a service, so we need to add that service. And then under the follow-up section, it includes some text from policy that defines how often follow-up should be happening. So you need to be doing follow-up as often as necessary for 1 year post-exit. However, at a minimum, it should occur at least every 30 days for the first 3 months, and then should occur at least once a quarter for the remainder of the year. And you can document your follow-up by adding a follow-up case note. When we click this button, it'll open up the follow-up modal, or it'll open up the case note modal with follow-up set as the type. So that feature is already there. For youth, they do have the option to opt out of receiving follow-up services. This is not something you guys can just allow them to do or ask them if they're interested in doing. But some youth might come to you and say, hey, I don't want to participate in being involved in follow-up. You may also have situations where you cannot locate your youth to engage them in follow-up. There is policy that follows how you can engage youth with follow-up. Let me jump to the follow-up section. So if we go to the partner guide, there is follow-up services for youth that defines how that works for your youth. So you need to make sure you're familiar and understand how the policy works for unable to locate youth and opting out. But now we have a way, or we will later this week, have a way for you guys to track this in the system so you can show that you offered it, but they either opted out or you were unable to locate them to provide them the follow-up services. So I'm jumping back into my test customer.
I was going to say, Olivia, can I jump in right there?
Yeah.
Just so that we are very clear on that, we should not see over half of your participants opting out. We should not see over half of your participants cannot locate. That button is not used as just a free-for-all. It really should be a handful, if that, of any grant. That is a huge red flag for us. That is a huge red flag for our monitoring team and our performance team. So please use that button very sparingly, and also make sure you are case noting in great detail when you use it. I just wanted to put that piece in there.
Yes, thank you, Tara. And that is something that is very important. I'm glad Tara walked through, like, this is not something we want to see a lot of. You should not be promoting your youth to opt out or not be able to contact them in order to not receive follow-up services. That is part of the policy. It will need to be clearly documented too, which we'll see a little bit as we actually get into looking at our customers. So when you have a customer who has come to you and said, I don't want follow-up services, I want to be done, or you have made the necessary outreach attempts, which is policy, unable to locate has to be determined after attempts to locate the customer have been made for a minimum of the first 2 quarters following exit. So you have to be working to contact them the first 2 quarters, and it's not just once a quarter. It follows that follow-up thing of you need to be trying to make contact every 30 days until you're able to mark them as unable to locate. So when we come into our career plan, the way we identify that we've offered a follow-up services is there is the follow-up service that we're going to add. And then we will, sorry, I see we have a question. We've had 2 cannot locate, but used when we literally cannot locate them, and we continue attempts to follow up. Once we do locate them or receive information, we've been amending the exit response as appropriate. Yes. Yeah. And so that's one of the things we've built in for the system too, which I will talk about for the follow-up is folks, you might not be able to relocate, or you might not be able to locate them for the first 2 quarters, but then maybe quarter 3, you're still trying to get in touch with them. You already marked that they declined follow-up services. You can always re-engage them in follow-up services as long as it's within that 1-year window. And so we have a way that we can track that and stuff in the system as well. And then I think Eric's response is just a little more broad, that when they can't locate them, they don't always just say we're done, exit, and don't try to reach back out. But if they can re-engage them within that 90-day window, they get in contact and do that. So for our follow-up service, all customers who have exit should have a follow-up service. That is something you are required to provide to all customers. The follow-up service, you're going to associate it to their goal, your planned start date. So say my customer exited the beginning of January. I'm going to add my start date to start doing follow-up right after they exit. My planned end date would be a year from exit. And then we have our different statuses. So you can mark it as started open once they start and are in that follow-up. You have successful completion. You have unsuccessful completion. And then we have offered but declined. So this is what you'll use if one of your customers are going to meet the dropped out of follow-up by either opting out or not being able to locate. You offered it, but they declined it. When we select that, it's going to open up a modal that's going to ask us select the reason for it being declined. Were they unable to locate? And then we're going to give you, we pull in some of that policy text right here. It has to be a minimum of the first 2 quarters following exit. Have you made attempts to locate and contact the participant 2 quarters post exit? Yes. Have you clearly documented your attempts and efforts to contact the customer in case notes? Yes. And then we can save it. If at any point we say no, it is not going to allow us to save and use the status of offered but declined, because they cannot decline it until they meet the policy. We still have work to do before we can deem this service as offered but not declined. Once all of these radio buttons are yes, we can then go in and save the service. There's also text here. So I want to point this out really quick. In instances where well-documented case notes that the youth opted out and were not responsive to follow-up, career planners should still engage in confirming employment and wage and post-exit outcome information. So just because your youth are asking for you to not follow up with them, or you cannot locate them to follow up with them, doesn't mean you can't still reach out to employers or the education institutions where they're at to try to get that post-exit outcome information that we do track every quarter post-exit. Follow-up and post-exit outcome tracking are 2 completely different things. Again, refer to that policy. It breaks that down very clearly. And if you still have questions, you could reach out to us. But just because they opt out of follow-up does not mean you should not be updating their post-exit outcomes every quarter post-exit. Once we have this filled out, we can click Save. And that is going to show that it was successfully updated and saved. And then one other thing I want to note, so this is still in the test environment. We are going to include some text right here that is going to show more information. It would show that I selected unable to locate as the reason that they declined, to provide more visibility on that to you all. We just don't have that visual showing there, but we will be providing that. Then we can go ahead and save this case note, or save the service by adding the case note. Know that it is all saved. And then I also wanted to point out too, there is this updates log as part of the career plan. So anytime you make changes to your services, it is updating in a log here to show who's making the changes and what they're updating. So if you ever come back in and say, 2 quarters or 3 quarters have passed, I actually was able to get in contact with my customer, I can come back in to my steps and services, and I can edit that follow-up service and mark it as open and re-engage them. And because we're tracking all this data through a log, we're going to build out the dashboard row to provide a little bit more transparency on the follow-up, and we can show you who all has been re-engaged. So who all is regularly just in follow-up and who maybe declined at one point and re-engaged at follow-up later, just to provide you guys more transparency on that. And so you can see how your customers maybe are moving around and notice patterns or things like that. And then on our outcomes page, I think this is a big one that most of you are trying to figure out how to do. So when you update the service to they declined, your follow-up is no longer going to just sit as yellow for a whole year until that year period passes. It will know that it now needs to come in and be marked off as complete because they have either declined it. If you ever go back and update that service to an open status and it's still within that year window, it will re-update this to show as yellow in progress. But once you have updated the service, it'll mark as complete. Or once the year has passed and you have the appropriate amount of follow-up case notes, it will then mark as complete as well. So I know a couple of our grantees had actually reached out about how do I mark that I cannot locate them, or my customers asked that they not have to participate in follow-up. How do I mark that? This is the feature that we came up with the DCOT, and we worked with performance, policy, the YCP group, and the IWDS trainer to put together these updates. I'm going to be following up with the specific grantees who've asked about it once this is to production. Again, we're estimating Friday is when we'll have this rolled to production, and we will update the partner guide to highlight that. So I want to pause right here and see if anybody has any questions. All right. Well, this is all I have for the follow-up. We'll have this recording posted so that if you guys need to come back and kind of see a little bit on this as you start doing it, you can. We'll also have the instruction guides if you're more of an instruction person when it comes to learning new things. Those will be available as well. And then you guys can always reach out to me too as you're going in updating those customers. With that, I want to open things up to you all to see if you have any questions regarding the system that you would like to walk through with our team.
This is Destiny from Youth Job Center.
Hi, Destiny.
Hey, so I recently did like a virtual Zoom celebration for the youth, and then we did incentives for them. So I wanted to mark it as supportive services, but I know that I needed to connect it to a goal, correct?
Yes, to connect it to a goal. And if the supportive services, if what you're doing is helping to support them, everybody I'm pretty sure has some kind of employment goal. And if what you're doing is to support them towards their employment or training goal, you could definitely squeeze it in
Just
under
type.
that goal. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And that is awesome. A virtual celebration sounds very cool. Any other questions? We are getting, towards the end of the grant. So please make sure if you have questions regarding exiting your customers, documenting employment or outcome information, MSGs or credentials or anything like that, that you are connecting with our team sooner rather than later. The end of April is going to be here before we know it. I'd rather work with you all now and make sure we're getting you squared away than have minimal limited time at the end of April to get things cleaned up and looking good. We're always here if you have questions or need to connect with us on any of the different aspects of the program, whether it's the tool or the policies or procedures. Just know you can always reach out to us. Before I turn it over to Tara, Arnissa, you had sent an email about a question, and I was wondering if you would be able to stay online with me when we end the recording so I can show you what I think might be happening.
Sure, I can do that.
Perfect. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Tara to see if she has anything else to add. If not, we will end the recording and I will stay online to talk to people offline. Do we have, yeah, go ahead, Tara. If you're talking, we cannot hear you. I see you're unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Daddy patty to myself. Okay. So just wanted to remind everyone, spending plans, like Olivia said, we're always here, but unless you all know, let us know that there's a problem, we are thinking that everyone and everything is going well. So please look over those spending plans and your budget. We are winding down, so start looking at your clients, their files. Everyone should have a credential or attempted to obtain a credential, training, work-based learning opportunities. So make sure that you're looking in the system and seeing that natural flow that all your students should have had, especially assessments as well. Again, if you have any questions, let us know, email us, and we are here to help. But again, we should be winding these grants down And we will go from there. Oh, wait, same here, same here. Oh, okay. Bye, Eric. Bye, Shannon.
All right,
it.
any last questions before we end?
Hi, this is Tiffany Tyler with Quad County Urban League. I had a question about the spend plan. Is there a certain template that we need to use for that, or?
No, you need to use the one that's in GRS. So the monthly report actually that I sent you yesterday, you can use that
Yes.
because you should have your supportive service line, personnel, and then since you are deobligating, you just need to tell us what line that's coming from. I
Oh,
got
okay.
$200 coming from supportive services. I got
Gotcha.
$1,500 coming from personnel. We just need to know where, and we need that today so we can go ahead and review it, and then you will have to do that modification process.
Again,
So
okay.
it's the same one you all did last. Yep. Again, when you deobligate, we got to do that because we have to then absorb that money, and then we have to find another agency to send that money out to. So please look at it again and make sure that you all for sure cannot spend it anywhere else before we have to do all that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any
Anyone
other
else?
questions?
Right there.
All right, thanks everyone. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you again in 2 weeks where we're going to have Paula on to talk about exit information.